So, we've learnt the 3 ways which firms can compete on price with each other, but why would firms turn to non-price competition? To answer this, let's think about the negatives of price competition. So, predatory pricing and limit pricing are just blatantly illegal, as they are seen as anti-competitive practices. Also leads to firms being fined and can severely ruin brand image. Then price wars, when firms desperately undercut each other with lower prices. This of course would kill both firms' profits and leads to worse outcomes for both firms. Focusing on that last sentence, why does decreasing price lead to both firms being worse off? Here I'm going to show you a table, and it's just for understanding. You will not be expected to recall any of this. Sticking with a Coke and Pepsi example, this table is going to show Coke's price, Coke's quantity, and lastly Coke's revenue. And the way we work out Coke's revenue is by taking Coke's price and multiplying it by Coke's quantity. So by taking the price of your good and multiplying it by the amount you sell. So here, for example, Pepsi's price is $1 and they sell 80 million worth of units. Therefore, their revenue is 1 times 80 million. Therefore, their revenue is 80 million. What I want you to focus on in this table is the total revenue. So when Coke and Pepsi are both at £1, the equilibrium price, the total revenue is 180 million. But now, let's see what would happen if Coke wants to engage in a price war and decrease its price to, for example, 90 pence. And now, as we know, due to the interdependence in oligopolies, if Coke decide to decrease their price to 90 pence, Pepsi will have to do the exact same thing, match it, and set their price also at 90 pence. And now, if you can visualize the kink demand curve, if prices decrease from equilibrium, quantity demanded will be inelastic. Therefore, despite a decrease in price, quantity demanded will not increase significantly, which is what we see with Coke. So Coke is now at 90 pence, but quantity demanded has only increased 1 million. And also Pepsi's quantity demanded has not increased significantly. Let's now focus on the total revenues. So at our initial £1 price, the total revenue was 180 million. But now at our lower 90 pence price, our total revenue is at 164 million. This of course means for both firms, total revenue has fallen, which is ultimately the reason why oligopolistic firms maintain the same price over a long period of time. And the reason why we see a lack of price competition, as there's no incentive for firms to price compete, as both firms will be worse off. And this whole phenomenon is what we refer to as price rigidity or price stickiness. So let's just put that into a few notes for you. So why does decreasing price lead to worse outcomes for both firms? So basically just a simplified example of what I was saying. So when Coke lowers its price, it expects higher revenue from increased demand. However, in an oligopoly, Pepsi also lowers its price to stay competitive, and this is the interdependence in oligopolies. This results in both firms being worse off, which is why oligopolies tend to keep prices stable, and instead of competing on price, they tend to compete using non-price competition. So we've mentioned non-price competition, but what actually is non-price competition? Number 1, advertising. Just think about all the famous advertisements you see around Christmas time. Secondly, loyalty cards. Now, why are loyalty cards so clever? As they keep consumers coming back, and more importantly, away from rival firms. Definitely the most popular example in the UK is the Tesco Club card, which Tesco uses it to gain an advantage over the other oligopolistic supermarkets. Also, if you like to remember some statistics, during the cost of living crisis in 2023, demand for the Tesco Club card increased over 800%. And that's around 20 million customers. Thirdly, branding. Firms attempt to make their brands a household name and becomes almost a universal language. Like, go to any corner of the world and you ask them about Nike, it's very likely they'll know what Nike is. Lastly, quality. Now, quality does usually go hand in hand with branding, as good quality leads to a good brand reputation. But the main thing with quality, it means that firms do not have to compete on price. For example, LV does not have to undercut Nike's prices for clothing. Why? As its quality markets itself.